Well, hi, and welcome to another LRCC Soundbite. Do you know that saying, the writing's on the wall, usually taken to mean that what's going to happen has now been fixed. You've been judged for something you did and there's no getting out of it. Have you ever wondered where that saying comes from? Well, it's rooted in a story from the book in the Bible about a man called Daniel, handily called Daniel. I've spent the last few weeks talking about different stories from this book, and I'm going to carry on, and I just thought that might be useful to have in the back of your mind as we listen to this story. So the king that's been involved in all our stories so far, a guy called Nebuchadnezzar, he's died, and there's been a few more kings. Now on this particular day, the current king decides he's going to have a huge feast and invite lots of people. He's a bit short on crockery, so he gets the cups and the goblets that were taken from the temple in Jerusalem a few decades earlier and brings them in for people to just use as regular drinking vessels. Now, as he and his guests are eating and drinking, they're having a great time, but the room goes silent as a hand appears and starts writing on the wall. It's a few years before Banksy, and they can see that it looks like a human hand, but there's no body attached to it. The hand writes 4 words, but no one can read them, even less understand what they mean. Now, after the king's usual advisors have had a look and failed, one of the queens tells the king of a man called Daniel, who used to help Nebuchadnezzar and was considered to be able to solve things like this. He had special insight from God. So the king gets Daniel brought to him and asks what this means. The king is pretty desperate. He's terrified. He's convinced this is not good news. And indeed, it turns out it isn't. God has written these words on the wall, and Daniel can read them. They say, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin. Then he tells the king what the words mean. This is what Daniel told him. Mene means that the days of your kingdom have been numbered, and you're out of time. Second, Tekel means that you have been judged and found to be wanting. And finally, Parsin means that the kingdom is already falling and will be divided between 2 other nations. The king is not pleased, but he rewards Daniel. He'd said before that he would reward whoever could tell him what it means with a royal robe, a purple robe, a gold chain and a promotion. But it's too late. The writing really is on the wall. God has judged the king and is telling him that the kingdom is going to fall. And indeed, later that night, the king is captured and executed. And a collaboration between 2 nations, the Medes and the Persians, they come in and they take over. You know, I think this is a story that cautions us about some of those times when either we have some authority over things or even we're just advising and guiding other people. God gives us opportunities and can put us in those positions. But to be successful, we need to follow God's ways. We need to be fair. We need to use the resources we have well. It's not a story saying that God will come along and forcibly remove you from whatever position you're in. But ultimately it is saying that he's in charge, and what it tells us and what he tells us about how to do things is good. And we will generally do a lot better if we follow his guidance. There's a huge amount under the covers of this story, but I just wanted to leave you with that thought. Follow good ways of dealing with people. And certainly, if you're in any position of influence, even if it's only giving advice to a friend, think about doing it in the way that God would want. God bless you, and I'll see you next week when I promise at last I will talk about Daniel and a certain pride of lions. See you next week.